So, hello everybody. This is the third episode of the Mindful Way podcast.
Hello.
And today we are going to talk about feeling lost and finding yourself. We are Mindful Way. Michael and I, we talk about self-development and AI and how the two might interconnect and how AI might be able to help us with our self-discovery journey. So this is what Mindful Way is about. In our first episode, we've got a longer introduction, so check that out if you like. Today, we're going to shake things up a little bit again. We're going to start with some exciting news from the world of AI. We've come across a couple of interesting things, which Mikhail will tell us about.
Yeah, sure. So interesting times in the world of AI. Everything is progressing super fast as we are all bombarded with news about AI all the time. And now even more so because of the Consumer Electronics Show that takes place in Las Vegas in the US. So it is totally AI crazy. Andrish and me are focusing on the personal growth side of AI. So we've been on the lookout for any products that might be relevant to our area of interest with AI. So how AI can be used for self-development, for personal growth, and not just for productivity, like everybody is talking about. And a couple of products have indeed dragged our attention there. So the first one is a smart mirror that is capable of reading your facial expressions and is capable of helping you with your mental well-being. I don't right now know the name of the product. This is something that we are going to be looking into a bit more in detail moving forward, because it seems like an interesting use case, right? So every morning, like, it can really see how you're feeling after getting up, how you're starting your day. Perhaps it can help you get better into your day, or detect that you are maybe worried or you haven't had enough sleep. So all sort of good stuff can come out of a product like that.
Circles under your eyes, and if they're too dark, I'll tell you need more sleep.
Yes. And of course, there is always some privacy concerns and stuff. So we're going to look into it, but a very interesting use case. And other products, it's an absolute AI killer in the world of AI, I would say. It's called Rabbit, and it is a personal device that costs only $199. And it is like something like Samantha from the movie, right? Yeah, from the movie Her. It is already super impressive. I mean, the keynote speech from the founder, the CEO, it is really worth watching. And maybe we can play some clips here from it so you guys can see. It is a small device with a 360 camera. So the camera is like a physical thing you can turn around, but it can watch you, it can watch your surroundings. Even like the way it starts conversing with you is that it listens to the environment and it detects what kind of language is being spoken, and it starts speaking to you in that language that it learns from just hearing the stuff around. So maybe there is a TV in the background in some language, and then it detects, oh wow, that person understands that language and can communicate with you. And there is tons of functionality with it. It is probably a challenger to smartphones in a way, although they are portraying it as a complementary device, which for sure initially it will be. But even in the newsletter, reading it again today, I've seen that you've noted. Imagine having a personal AI companion that can help you in a way, not feeling lost.
Yeah.
And this kind of device is already going to be capable of. I have ordered one. It is $199, like I said, delivered worldwide. So I live in Spain. I ordered it here, no problem. Although it is a pre-order and it's only going to start shipping in April. But I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Yeah, let's try it together on the podcast and show it to people. And from what I understand from the keynote speeches, it's a complete departure from what we know today, what exists today, as in terms of operating systems and mobile phones operating apps. So there's not going to be an app for purchasing things or another app for writing an email, or there's not going to be an app. There's just going to be one AI, and it will do the tasks for you, no matter what the task.
Yes.
It doesn't need different applications for different tasks. So it's a groundbreaking product in that sense.
It's promising, so we will see. I rarely get that. I get excited about technology in general, and I'm a big tech person, but I have not been excited about any device for as far as I remember, as much as perhaps for the iPhone. I was that excited. This is really cool. Well, who knows if this is the one, but it really shows the direction that AI takes, and it is just getting there so fast. And of course, like this device is very much like general purpose. It can be used for so many things, including all this productivity stuff that the world is crazy about. But for sure, there is this niche that interests us in terms of personal growth, in terms of just helping with feelings and emotions. And so, just to finish on this device, this is how excited I am. I keep talking about it now. Yes, so you can teach it stuff, and it is easy to imagine that people who are specializing in certain fields like that could be teaching this device skills that it can apply to its users, right? So we'll see in April or hopefully soon after, and for sure we are going to be playing with it and showing it to you guys.
It's hugely exciting. We keep referring back to the film Her, but that's just such a good film, isn't it? It's just the vision the people had who created that film. It's not only a good film, cinematically, and actors are really good in it, but also how much how much accurate they were about the future. It's crazy.
It's science fiction, right? So it's the same as Star Trek is showing spaceships, and now spaceships are being built, and it is because it is sci-fi, and because AI is a thing that is being developed for many years, right? The direction of already known and predicted, and it is kind of not hard to imagine that this is the form factor, that that voice is the ultimate interface, unless we plug into the brains, right?
And like you said, when we watch the film, is all you need is a small device that can display visuals, but other than that, you don't really need a device. Just you can keep that in your pocket, just talk to the operating system in your ear.
Yes.
So it's super exciting. So I can't wait for you to get that and for us to try it together and see if we can help with self-development. And with that, I think we can jump into talking about today's topic, which is the feeling of being lost and having no direction. And I think you wanted to kick off with talking about the mind and making space in your mind to find direction and to find your purpose. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you and I have been talking outside of this podcast quite a bit on also regarding Mindful Way. And we are experimenting with how to really articulate what Mindful Way means to us, because it is quite intangible, right? It is something that between us, we're feeling this like the way of living that really gives us this satisfaction, fulfillment. Although these are kind of grand words, but also the peace of mind, like there are various aspects, and capturing it all together, it proved challenging because there is, so much we're curious about, so many angles there are to aspiring to living like a good life. And, what is our definition of it? That is not going to be universal, but it would be appealing to a big audience out there or a sizable audience out there. And what we have arrived at right now, that Mindful Way, it is something about making space in our minds. And Mindful Way's purpose, as we are thinking about it currently, is circulating around helping you to make more space in your mind. Why would we want to make space in minds, right? Because the clutter is something that is really weighing heavily on us. And mental clutter, if we can get rid of it, if we can have our mind in order, it is easier to confront all the challenges in life. It is easier to use that space. When you make space in your mind, then you open it up for the new thing that can fill this space, and not more clutter, but thing that can temporarily fill this space, where you can work on something, where you can create something, where you can be with another person, like super present. Imagine being able to have a lot of space in your mind and you can fill it all up with that shared space with another person, right? This is the wonderful stuff that comes out of making space in your mind. And this is what Mindful Way is here to do. we are going to take it in the direction where we are helping you to make more space in your mind.
Yeah, and then just to add to that, I've been noticing lately, as you go through your day, your all this information is coming towards you, and your mind is always busy. And it helps just to, for me at least, it helps just to, turn the music off, go leave the computer, and just have, a quiet 10, 15 minutes while I'm, I don't know, doing the dishes or doing something mundane to occupy my hands, but not my mind. And then in that time, in that 10, 15, if you can make it longer, is even better, because that's the time when you let your mind wander and come up with ideas and get inspiration and come up with theories or things you want to talk about. And similarly for self-development, you can then reflect on experiences that you recently had and then, draw conclusions. But you need that quiet time to do that. If you constantly engage your mind and it's always busy, you just don't have time for yourself. So just allow some time for yourself. More and more, I now have these deliberate quiet times to let my mind, think and have its own time, and not occupy it with everyday tasks and deadlines and work and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's just something I wanted to add. My personal experience is, today's world is so much information. You just need to, switch off for a little bit to catch up.
Yeah, what you described is this deliberate making space in your mind, kind of clearing the air in your mind, right? There is also the other side to it, which is what is the surrounding area in your mind where you want to clear this air. Because if it's really cluttered with a lot of stuff, like there is not much air to clear. And I'm coming at it from this other side where clutter in mind is not only those things that we are bombarded with that you mentioned, right? All the advertising, all the news, all the exciting stories, all the controversial stories that are just being bombarded. We are being bombarded with online, on the mass media, everywhere, plus all the people that we're meeting, right? Everybody likes to repeat and talk about stuff. This all can go in our mind, and clearing it might be relatively easy with, like you said, a walk, a meditation, or just this alone time or quiet time. But then to make more space in mind, it is important to work through those layers and layers of life's experiences that have made us who we are. And a lot of them are great, but a lot of them are somehow weighing us down in the mind, right? They're occupying this space, and it is important that we actually learn about them, that we explore them, that we learn about ourselves, right?
Reflect,
which you kind of mentioned in the beginning, right? Like knowing yourself well. And you talk about this in the newsletter as well. So there is that aspect of knowing what is in our minds, identifying, uncovering more and more. And then working it through so that space is permanently made. Yeah? And then when you have a lot of this space, then even if there is a lot of kind of daily stuff coming into your mind because of the external, living in the environment, and you want to clear it out, it will be just easier to clear it out. There will be just more space after it as well. So yeah, there are always many angles to it. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, it links back to our previous two podcasts about self-discovery and self-awareness, and just how much you need that space to be able to evaluate and think about stuff, so you can draw conclusions and be better and develop.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned the newsletter, so let's just have a quick overview as what's in newsletter, which comes out at the same time as a podcast. So
may I interrupt you? I will just comment on the newsletter that it comes out always with the podcast, right? And this newsletter, the recent one or the one that is upcoming with this podcast, is just excellent. It is the best one so far. And Andris, I just love how you have written it. There is tons of really useful information in this newsletter. So yeah, talk a little bit about what is there. Maybe don't review everything, and anyone interested, subscribe, because it is really, if you're interested in self-development in AI and AI, the Mindful Way newsletter really will help you get clear on what is possible, what is not, and will make you think about many different aspects of this subject.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate your review. I think better every time I write one. So yeah, this obviously was a step up. So so in the newsletter I talk about the feeling you get when you feel a bit lost and have no direction, and share a personal story as well. And then I did some research about how to find your way out of this feeling and getting direction. I did a little bit of research about the causes and how to get out of it. Some practical tips of how to move forward. I've got some links in there for some interesting articles. And then of course, what makes Mindful Way? We talk about AI and what tools are available out there. So I have about 7 different tools listed on there that could potentially help with finding direction. So that's super interesting. And as we heard in the news at the beginning, there is more and more new stuff coming out every day. So it's a very exciting space right now, AI. And so if you'd like to check the newsletter out, subscribe. We're not going to inundate your inbox every day in newsletters. It comes out every 2 weeks. And with the podcast, and we try to keep it interesting. So should we go into a little bit talk about personal stories in terms of feeling lost and times you felt like you haven't had any direction? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, maybe we just give first our thoughts about what does it mean for us to feel lost and how our audience might be resonating with that, because I don't actually know if we have the same understanding. So let's have a little round on that, and then share some stories. And I guess maybe this is a good, from me, it's a good introduction to the topic, is that every one of us is familiar with the feeling of feeling lost. It is something that they can come and go. It's something that anyone would have experienced. Sure, once when you're in this state, like feeling lost, like right here, right now, it really does occupy a lot of space in the mind, right? Definitely, mind does not have a lot of empty space at this moment. It also feels often like, wow, I'm so lost that I don't know if I'll ever find myself. I guess the human mind has this propensity for seeking tragic outcomes. So what I find useful and helpful is when I get, and there are periods of time when I do get there. And of course, I don't want to ever be there, but the periods of life just will lead me there eventually. And as they have in the past, I like to just remember how the last time it was so difficult and so personally challenging, and then maybe very few people around would pay attention because people have their own lives and so on. I just remind myself of how time solves everything, and what is important is like right here, right now, and knowing from the past that it's all gonna be good and all right in the end, like just helps me to get there faster.
Yeah. So for me, when I had this feeling, or when I felt lost and I felt like I've got no direction, it's sort of it always happened before a major change in my life, and it's always happened during a time where things got a bit autopilot-y, if you can say that. So you do your 9 to 5, and you got your routine, you go to the gym, you go to work, you go home, and then sleep, and then do it all over again. And you feel like you're in a hamster wheel, and you just look for something that kind of gives you purpose, because at that time you might feel, what am I doing? Am I contributing something? Am I doing something that's that's valuable, that creates value? So every time I had this feeling, for me it was on my mind, but it was on the back of my mind. So while I was doing my daily things, it was always on the back of my mind that I should do something else, that I felt I have this feeling, and I put this in the newsletter as well, that you just have something more in you. You're destined to do something more rather than just the 9 to 5 or to pay bills and that's it. So typically when I had this feeling, and it comes sort of it comes and goes. It's a bit like there's a parallel to happiness. Happiness is also not a constant feeling, but some stages in your life or some moments you feel happy, and then apart from that, you try to capture the moment to see, why do I feel happy? What's going on in my life right now? But so when I felt lost, I always started looking for ways to add value and thinking about, so what could I do? What else is out there? What should I change? And I always ended up either moving, having another job, moving to a different country, or make some substantial change. It's either, well, now that I'm thinking about it, just moving is not going to give you purpose, but searching for what makes you happy, what you are passionate about, and looking into what you can do in that sphere is helpful. And so my personal story in the newsletter is working on a passion project with you and another friend, and that gave me purpose at that time. I said, okay, this is something I feel passionate about. Let's do this. I had motivation, and it was going to be a long-term project, which turned out not to be. When that project finished, I started thinking about, again, okay, so here I am. I've got a job. I just moved. So I feel good about my surroundings, but I feel unfulfilled. So, but we kept in touch. We talked about our passion, about self-development, and how could we share our stories, because we find it interesting. Other people might find it interesting too. And then that's how Mindful Way was born. And then, Mindful Way then became the purpose. So it's super interesting, because you go through sort of ups and downs. Sometimes when you're down, you feel like, oh, there's no hope, I have no purpose, no direction. But then you interact with people who have similar values to you, like I interacted with you. And, we came up with something that it brings value, because if we can help people with these podcasts or other things we might do in the future,
help ourselves and help people.
Stay tuned for other exciting stuff that we might do in the future. People shouldn't feel entirely hopeless, because there is always, if you know yourself and you know what you like, what you're passionate about, if you try things around that area, you will find something that gives you that sort of purpose and direction. And so that's my experience with feeling lost and feeling hopeless, or not having direction. It's a bit cyclical. Also, like with your mood and your happiness, sometimes you feel down, sometimes you feel excited.
Probably the cycle is much longer for the feeling lost, right? So you're not like happy. Unhappy can be much more compressed in time, where feeling lost hopefully takes years in between.
It's definitely a longer cycle. It's because if you have a dream, for example, doing your own business or doing something that you've always dreamt of doing, it will take a few years. Like starting a business, it will take a minimum of 2-3 years to see if it's viable, if you can get there. So that's already a longer time compared to the moments of happiness that you feel when you're walking and you see the sunset, and then you just realize, all right, so I'm actually pretty grateful for what I have and my health and the non-material little things that you find happiness in. So it's definitely a longer period than that momentary happiness. So
I'd like to comment on some of the things that you said that I found particularly interesting. So one is when you mentioned, or where you described the story that actually you write in more detail in the newsletter about your experience creating Mindful Way together, us creating Mindful Way together, and how this was meaningful to you. And it is quite interesting now how you narrated it here on the podcast, that it just came out of the relationship that was born on the occasion of working on another project. And project that failed, that potentially we could have been focusing on the failure and on what had not gone our way and so on. But actually, both you and me have been pretty much off with this topic like really quickly. And what was a lot more interesting for us was finding some of these parallel things, summarizing our experience together, and how what we have found that resonated between the two of us and so on. And actually we have put the words to something that already existed in that relationship, but it became quite clear that, hey, we want to be in some conversation. Like, what are those topics of those conversations? And it was not obvious at all. It wasn't something that somehow we have conspired, right, to let's do this mindful way thing. It just was born out of incremental conversations. And I think this is something that for everyone it's worth remembering, that, you know, those grand words about finding your passion, and, you know, it makes me cringe when even when we say those things, even though like in our perception is a totally different meaning, because it just makes me think of those, let's say, influencers or, you know, individuals who are really like have huge followings because they seem to be so clear on just having it figured out in life, and, you know, everything just about their life shows that they really have some secret recipe, right? And often they're selling those secret recipes, say, hey, I will sell, you know, just subscribe to something that I do and I'll give you this step-by-step, very easy way. Whereas there is no easy way out, and there isn't. And maybe I'm built differently, and maybe really those people do know exactly where they're going, and they have this all crystal clear, and, you know, something that the 99% of us don't have. However, my friends and people I know, and, you know, acquaintances who on the surface seem like so successful and have this fantastic life that can be like in simple words summarized, that make it appear as they have everything figured out. Like when you get personal with people, you very quickly find out that no, they don't have it figured out. They also are, you know, meandering and wandering all the time, finding their path. I think it's just quite normal when you know little about person, like we know about those celebrities, right? That it seems like everything is in order. And I think for the same reason, there is this whole gossip industry where people want to know what is not all right with those people, just to get this excitement, right? But yeah, really, like those, I just want to circle back to those things that you're passionate about. Like, you don't need to find them; they are already in your life. And it's sometimes those conversations that you can have with others help you discover it. Like for us, it was discovered in that fashion, but I think it always happens in life like that. Like, I don't remember a single meaningful thing that I've done in my life that wasn't born out of conversations with like people that I'm connected with, right? Everything I've done in life is always like discussed, debated, explored in the abstract world before it became reality. It's never like just my job and just my thing that I've done.
That kind of links it back to knowing yourself and surrounding yourself with people with similar values, similar interests, and that's when the real interesting conversations are arriving, and that's when you get inspired. Like you said, it always comes from conversations with people who share the same values and interests.
Yeah, if you lost, like, keep exploring and keep having conversations, and that is something that is going to, spark some idea, and that's just follow the rabbit hole, and make a lot of mistakes, try a lot of things, and like when one that connects with you will appear, then you will know that this is the one. Then just keep searching.
Yeah, and sometimes people tell you, you're good at this. Why don't you do this? So just think about it. Think about why people might say that to you. And explore.
Most people like to criticize, not so much to praise. Yeah, so if you hear praise, that's probably something to focus on.
Yeah, and that's a good person to keep around as well.
Yes, as long as this and honest and not how do you call the false praise?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, well, you really want to surround yourself with honest people who have your best interest at mind, and not people who don't believe in you fulfilling your full potential. And I think, like, the other thing that you have, I will actually go to the newsletter, and it's because there is one quote that you put there from Tolkien: "Not all those who wander are lost." So that kind of resonates with me. And as I've talked about this, constant exploring, there's nothing wrong with wandering. That is you're not being lost. You are actually
if you
finding
don't
yourself.
wander, you will never find your way.
And yes, I mean you have mentioned that just a moment ago, but the exact words here from the newsletter are, perhaps you have this feeling that you can't shake, that you are destined to be more. And this is like something quite profound for me, because I've been giving this thought like quite a few years ago. I remember like this deliberating about like how some people are positive, some people are negative, like why those personalities are so different and so on. And I came up with this concept about we are constantly like bouncing between I am special and I'm not good enough. And I think both are like being programmed to us as we are children, and by our parents, by our environment, right? By our school, by other kids in the school, right? And as we grow up, like there is always like, hopefully you get a lot of, look, you're special. Hopefully your parents are telling you this, and hopefully other people make you feel that, right? And we fall in love for the first time, like surely that person makes us feel special, like we get that. But then we also get this plenty of you're not good enough. And hopefully none of this comes from your parents, right? But then there will be always at school some teacher that just does not like you particularly for some reason, and likes others. There will be that girl or a boy that doesn't like you, and so you feel like you're not good enough. And why I'm bringing this up in this conversation about feeling lost, because the time when we are feeling lost usually is the time of big change, right? And you've alluded to that before. That is also my experience from my life, that when I felt lost was when I was undergoing this big change. And it usually wasn't like the change happening and then me feeling lost. It was like me causing the change and then going through this process of dealing with the change, of reinventing myself to be the optimal version of myself in that particular new situation. So I like to challenge myself and really like make big changes. Usually they are not very well thought through or researched, spontaneous, right? Naive, perhaps. People call it all sorts of different ways, that I have heard. But, in the end, it always works out for me and it keeps my life interesting. But it is in those moments that we are so vulnerable, and the feeling lost can be overwhelming, right? And in those moments, like those demons of I'm not good enough, like everything is so hard, doing everything for the first time, it doesn't need to be that difficult, but then yes, it is. So I'm not good enough, but then I am going through this change, right? I'm making that bold move. I'm going outside the comfort zone because I am special. I'm going to prove it to myself. I'm going to show it to others, right? Because like I deserve it. Like you said in the newsletter, like, I'm destined to be more, to do more. And there is the balance between being delusional about one side or just being too hard on yourself on the other side. And neither is going to lead to the outcomes that we would entertain, right? So that's that balance between feeling not good enough and feeling special. It's of big importance in the times where we're feeling lost, because one can really work against us and one can help propel us forward. And I would just say to everyone that if you are feeling lost, that means that there is some big change that you're undergoing. And if you are undergoing this big change, whether you asked for this change or it happened to you, this is your personal growth and you are the hero that you're going through it. So in these times, like, remember that you are special. And even if this is to a degree delusional, like, what other choice have you got? You're going to feel not good enough? Right now, you need to go through the change. You need to find yourself. You need to
I'll not give up.
These big words, right? But like, it is not about like, finding the passion. They always talk about this, like, what's your long-term goal? What you're going to be in 10 years? It's like, it's good to have some direction, right? But we don't know the future. What is important is right here, right now. And it's always this, like, learning to be in the moment, feeling in the moment is what really my personal experience is. That's when it's hard, when I'm undergoing this, like, finding myself, just bringing it back to basics, one day at a time, right? This is what chronically ill people or cancer survivors are they are going through their life one day at a time, because this is where you can be, you talked just before I started talking, you talked about being grateful, right? Super important, being in the moment, being grateful, taking day at a time. We are born every single day anew. It's another opportunity to undergo, the change that we are undergoing, or staying the way we are, right? If we are happy with the trajectory. So being grateful, being in the moments, again, for me, super important in terms of feeling lost. And so I can say, I can tell some personal story about that. So this is something that has been going across probably around 3 years, where the feeling of being lost and kind of finding myself and then being lost again and then finding myself again was kind of in quick successions, because I have undergone this big transition in my life. So I've been in a corporate world like for many, many years. And when I turned 35, I decided that I'm going to get out of this world. And I don't see my future there. If I keep doing it for the next 10 years, I'm not going to be happy. Kind of looking back. So I just imagine myself in my older version of self, looking back and thinking about what it will be like if I continue. So I decided to quit. I was actually 34 still, and with 10 months to go and before my 35th birthday. So actually I achieved the goal that I set out for myself earlier. And then I have gone traveling around the world and lived in many different countries, right? A typical kind of journey of, okay, well, what do I do? Okay, I don't know. I'm going to find myself.
Typical kind of a journey of self-discovery.
Yes, and there is probably, this is probably like worth bringing back the practice of thinking from different perspective about what's taking place, because we for the whole this episode we focus on the feeling lost, but really feeling lost is the same as being in a process of finding yourself. So you're talking about the same experience and plans we have done with another friend of us that has not proven successful. So again, that was, well, we were on this path that everything was amazing and was going the direction we wanted. Then another turnaround. So I have actually been then living between different countries. I have finally decided to come to Spain, and now I'm here in the south of Spain. You have been here recently with me, so a beautiful place, and that you have already known before anyway. But again, without much research, without really understanding like anything about reality here, it helped that I already spoke Spanish, that my girlfriend speaks Portuguese because she's from Brazil. So let's just do that. And then again, figuring everything out, and especially like encountering those new things that, from, I don't know, simple example, like huge bureaucracy here in Spain, and the way that I'm totally unfamiliar with, when you go to any public office and then all this paperwork that seems like still from 1990s. I don't want to be talking bad about Spain because I love Spain. It's amazing here. But, these aspects of challenges.
Every country has
a different culture, not being a native speaker. And, I do speak Spanish, but it's not like amazing. I can communicate, I can get things done, but, probably like way more than average. But still, it's very obvious that I'm a foreigner when, the same like I speak English, right? It's obvious it's not my first language, but Spanish is not as good. But anyway, like those in those times, like when feeling lost, it's really, yes, there is a direction that I'm going. Sometimes I believe in it more. Sometimes I believe it in less. As far as I've checked, like around all people I know, it is not that obvious, crystal clear for anybody that I have met, like where they're going. So why the hell stress about this and be so definitive and so on? Today I'm going that direction, and tomorrow it might change. But until then, I'm just, one day at a time, and really like doubling down on living a joyful life every day, having it full of joy. And that joy comes with being grateful for those things that have worked out, right? If I'm frustrated, so I'll just give this bureaucracy, because this is such an easy example to give without, like being going too deep into any particular topic. So, thinking that, I don't know, getting some paperwork done, it seems like it should be an online certificate that I can do, in 10 minutes. then finding out that it's probably going to be a 2-3 months process because there is a various steps in the process that need to be included. You rely on people and then offices and so on. And then actually completing everything in 3 weeks. And suddenly, I started finding joy in those like ridiculous victories that is not even a victory, but little things that you can just say, hey, we got it right, it's done. And others, those things accumulate, and really the compounding effect of those things is that you have a baseline happiness and a good level, and even though like I would say like in percentage wise to how many percent I feel lost and I don't feel lost, I would say probably 30% lost, 70% not. So overall pretty good. But if I think 2 years ago, because we are in Spain now for 1.5 years. So yeah, about 2 years ago, it was probably 70% lost, 30% not. So the trend is good, yeah. And it is not fluctuating. It is on the uptrend, and our conversations here with Mindful Way is also a part of it. Yeah, so thank you. You're part of me finding myself, and I was surprised that you written in the newsletter about our story with Mindful Way. Right, I have not thought that this is the one that you are going to do. So it was nice for me to read, and I think it's gonna be nice for anyone to read.
It's probably the most recent one. So I was going to be, if I was going to be clear about something, let's pick something that's more recent. And the thing, I have a couple of things I wanted to say and ask. First of all, you talked about not feeling good enough, and in a newsletter I shared a couple of people, famous people whose biographies I came across recently, and one they had in common is that their refusal to give up, doing things despite all the odds and everybody telling them that they are not enough. So check out the newsletter for those two names and watch their documentaries and see what you make of it. But I think there's two surprising and amazing people. And one of them is an inspiration to Mindful Way. If you follow our social media, you will find out one of them, because I was going to tag him in and thank him for inspiring us to create Mindful Way.
So I would say the first person who identifies the names of those people and tags them in the reply to one of our social media posts is going to get a reward of a personal direct message from us. Thank you.
Excellent.
It's an easy prize, but if you wonder who that could be, those famous people that inspired us, take a look at the newsletter, and the competition is on in the reply.
And the other thing is, you mentioned all the social media influencers and people who give advice about finding your passion, is they talk about your dream. And in contrast, we talk about living more in the moment and concentrating more on the near future rather than having a dream and a vision. And, people talk about vision boards and manifestation and all of that. So how does that, relate to finding your purpose and finding direction? And I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you do.
It's a great question. Yeah. So what I talked about is like coping with the overwhelming feelings that might happen in these times where you do feel lost. It is important to have a direction. Like, it's like, the way I think about this is that if you're a ship on a sea and you're sailing somewhere, right? And then, especially when there comes the storm, like, you want to be zeroed in on a lighthouse. You want to know that.
Yeah, but how far is your destination? Do you have
right? Like, you want to have some beacon of like, this is where I'm going. So you mentioned already before about the importance of values and like what is important to you. Like, articulate them. Don't just be wishy-washy about like, well, I don't know, like what matters to me is like 100 different things. Like, what are the really truly important things to you? This is already those beacons that are important. And then when it comes to personal goals, like, there's many areas of life. Yeah. So personal, like, relationship goals, like, there is obviously, it is an important area for everyone. So what is this kind of the direction, which am I going, left or right, or like, define it, and not just be maybe that. Flexibility is good, but it doesn't help in the process of finding yourself where you don't have this direction. And now what I would say is, again, I would say some percentage wise, when you're feeling lost, then 90% of importance is at right here, right now, like gratefulness, be in the moment and focus, task at a time and keep grinding, right? But the 10% is like, that's the direction I'm going.
So,
right?
so have a general direction, and then you keep that in mind, but focus more on the near future.
And in the time, like when you like where I am now, so I'm now at this, finding myself like, I feeling like I'm getting in a good level. It is still not like super clear, but that the progress is great. So even the part of even what we did on the episode today, talking about how Mindful Way is all about making space in our minds. This is this kind of clarity that it's only possible working on when you're not having this overwhelming feeling of being lost, right? So first, like focus right here, right now, like get yourself out enough so that the direction you've been heading, like you start seeing it more clearly. So if you're the storm, there's the ship on a storm, and maybe the lighthouse is somewhere out there in a fog and you can barely see it and so on. Okay, now that you have dealt with most of what has been overwhelming you, so you find yourself to a greater degree, it's not about finding the purpose yet, it's about finding yourself, right? So this, like having that feeling in the right direction, then, the storm feels less and less and less. Suddenly the sun comes out, and then you can focus really on where is that lighthouse, like what it looks like. You can start seeing the detail, you can describe it, you can name it, and you can be more purposeful at even going in that direction even more. And it just makes sense, yes, because when you're feeling lost, like you are going to be going left and right, it's all going to be shaky. So like this is the last moment where you should be thinking about like this, figuring out the long term, this is my vision, this is how I articulate it. Like we do that in those good times. Like in the bad times, it's important to fight.
Yeah, it's a good way of saying it. Find yourself first. Have a general direction, but don't focus on so much ahead. More about the now and the near future. Okay, so that's really good. I think, should we end it there? We're nearly at the hour mark. So
yeah, that's what we're gonna do. That we're not gonna stretch it too much.
And within the hour, so people don't get too bored.
Well, I think that those who this subject is interesting to can probably hear more. But there is only so much we can do to exhaust the subject. But very interesting.
We could be talking for hours.
Very interesting would be to extend this episode with some of the thoughts from the listeners. So if this made you think of anything, or you can relate to it right now, or maybe in the past, let us know. Whether you do it publicly or message us, you can message us on X or on Instagram, or reply to the newsletter. And then, we are always happy to hear, even if you don't have a story to share, but just want to say, hey guys, I like the idea of Mindful Way, and just say hi.
That would be huge for us. Being a new podcast, we would love to hear some of your opinions and what you think, what we should do better or what we should do differently. So it'd be interesting to hear from you.
Yeah, and it's worth getting in touch also because we are going to be doing more around this topic, self-development and AI. And if you are interested in these subjects, like get in touch with us, because there is for sure some ideas that can be worked on together. So those early adopters of Mindful Way of living are always welcome, and you guys are going to be the core of the community as we are going to be present here for more and more time.
Our social media. So on Twitter, we have a few lists of On X. Oh yeah, sorry. It's the habit. So on X, we have a few lists with interesting people who either in the AI sphere or mindfulness and self-development sphere. So check those out if you like to follow interesting people, or follow the list, and then you will see their posts and their interactions. And yeah, so let us know. Check out our social media, and www.mindfulway.ai is where all our links are to our podcast, YouTube, newsletter. You can get everything there. So yeah, thank you very much if you've stayed with us this long, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one. Cheers.